gentleman, I say, coming on. Mark Deeks is a basketball scout and writer. His Twitter bio, which, by the way, follow him at Mark Deeks. That's Deeks, NBA. His bio, I always love reading the bios. It says basketball scout and writer, occasionally insightful, always boring, covers all leagues despite the name. If you play pro, I've scouted you. If you play pro, I have scouted you. So, Mark, we'll start with this. What's your scouting report on Drew Timme, who is on our summer league team? Well, welcome in. How are you? First off,
I'm well and good. Thank you for the lead in of letting the listeners know that I will be boring. That's what every good radio broadcast wants to hear. I think it's a bit of that subtlety in the older English self-degradation coming through. The accent is not fake, gentlemen. This really is what I sound like.
Okay, hold up. Mark Deeks has an accent. This is fantastic. Mark, where are you? Where do you hail from originally?
A part of England just outside London that no one's ever heard of.
Okay, but I won't completely derail this because my partners are already rolling their eyes. But I took on a side job working for Huddersfield Town. I'm on my way out there in about a week, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So, big soccer guy here. We just got relegated, but now all of a sudden, I mean, you're in the yes. I have come to know over the last year that there is a stereotype about English sports fans where they can be incredibly snarky and a little negative at times. And I found that, some stereotypes can be true. And I love every minute of it, man.
They really can. And the English mentality with regards to pretty much everything, but including sports, is we are terrible, but everyone else is worse. That's our mentality. That's how we deal with the loss of an empire that we still haven't quite got over. We will tell you that everything about our country is broken and flawed and warped and corrupt, but at least we're not France. That's what it comes down to, ultimately.
But is it one of those things, Mark, where you can poke fun, but anyone else trying to do it's not allowed?
That's exactly what it is. You're dealing with what the aftermath of imperialism looks like. We're a bitter nation. Nice to be here.
Oh, this has become 10 times the interview I thought it would, and I thought it was going to be a good interview to start. So let me start with this. We're going to get to Vezenkov and all that. But as somebody who scouts, one thing and we were talking about Drew Timme earlier, but in a broader sense, along with Zach Edey, there is a long list of Zach Edey's and Drew Timme's and Tyler Hansbrough's and Luka Garza's, and we can go on and on and on. You just have to look at like the NCAA outstanding player in the Final Four, and most of them either translate to barely having an NBA career or not really having one at all. It fascinates me how often scouts actually get it right, and you see a guy putting up these insane numbers in college and it doesn't translate to the NBA. How big of a challenge is that to see a guy putting up numbers in D1 and going, yeah, but that's not going to work against Joel Embiid?
Try and bear in mind that whilst the NBA has 540 roster spots, it doesn't have the 540 of the world's best players. It has almost all of the top 300, but the bottom third, the half if you're generous, of the NBA is fairly interchangeable. Thus, it comes down massively to opportunity. I cannot, just to bring in Vezenkov briefly, he was the EuroLeague MVP. I reckon, this is anecdotal, half of the players in the EuroLeague have played in the NBA. Now, some went over there and had better careers. Anthony Randolph, a recent example, but certainly not the only one. That doesn't mean they could not have made it in the NBA. It means the opportunity to be on the fringes of the NBA or star in the EuroLeague, they took the latter. The money's right when you're that good. So when you talk about how can you assess a player's fabulous production at the NCAA level and how that won't make it in the NBA, in many cases it would if they were given the opportunity. There is a massive degree of luck involved. There's a massive degree of agency power involved. From a raw talent scouting point of view, a lot of what you're looking at is physicality. If you are not athletic enough, you never will be. Athleticism improves a bit in the NBA, but only a bit. These are grown men that are joining the league. It's the interface between what you can see with your eyes as to how they do what they do, the numbers that tell you the level and the intricacies of how they go about that, and also what you hear. Are they coachable? Do they listen? If they made a certain mistake constantly on defense, for example, was that of their own volition or was it taught? If they overhelped, was the coach teaching them that? When you put all those things together, you put together the eyes, numbers, and the intel, that's how you can make an assessment. And you're still often going to be wrong because it is hard.
Yeah, and I think if we go back to Sasha Vezenkov, who, Mark, as you know, came out here to Sacramento last year, a lot of Kings fans were excited. Kings have been seeking him out. He's EuroLeague MVP. And it's kind of to that point you made, opportunity, some luck, some fortune. He was injured, kind of in and out of the rotation, and it felt like an incomplete year, and now he's already gone and into Toronto. So I guess my thought on him is, when he came to the Kings, what kind of year did you anticipate Sasha Vezenkov having?
He wasn't bad when he played. I would say that if you had given him extra minutes in more games, he would have produced much like he did, because I think he was a pretty good player. The circumstances were against him, like you said, injuries. There was a certain sense of entitlement on his part, not because he thought he was better than he was, but because he gave up stardom and the riches and the ludicrous passion of the Olympiacos fan base to come over to the NBA to see if he could. And so he didn't have to come over here and ride the bench, and he didn't want to come over here and ride the bench. Nonetheless, I would defend him as a player, absolutely. If you go back, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Nemanja Bjelica's best seasons in the NBA came with you guys, came with Sacramento. You could have had the same with Vezenkov had it worked out, because he's that sort of player. Not identical, no two players are, but he is not just a shooter. He's a very, very skilled big man who can play center in spots. He has ability off the dribble. He's got a genius level of getting open. His basketball IQ is very high. He doesn't protect the rim, but he does move his feet on defense. He's a very smart role player. And it's a shame that that wasn't really tapped into here in Sacramento. And it's a shame that it ended in a de facto salary dump. But that can be the case. You have to deal with the person as much as you deal with the skill set.
So how does this all end, Mark, in Canada right now? How do you think this thing ends up finishing?
I think he takes a buyout from Toronto and goes back to Olympiacos, where they'd absolutely love to have him back, where the money will be comparable to what he's given up in the NBA. Toronto do value him as a player. They haven't just taken him on as a contract in that trade. They would probably like to get something out of him. But I don't think they will. I don't think he enjoyed his NBA experience. I don't think he's going to enjoy it, considering the Toronto aren't going anywhere anytime soon. These are his prime athletic years. I imagine he goes back to where he played his best and had his best fun.
And if he does he just go back right to that level of EuroLeague type MVP?
I can see no reason why not, unless some injury really hampers him, about which I don't know. Then yes, he will plug right back into Olympiacos, who will, like I said, absolutely take him back tomorrow, and he will immediately become one of the best players on my fallen continent.
So Mark Deeks joining us, and because Luka Doncic, and there's obviously, I mean, we know Vlade Divac so well, the late great Drazen Petrovic. This isn't the first time we've had an international sensation. It didn't start with Luka. You have these players, and when you look, and it goes beyond that, obviously, Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, but when you're specifically talking about that league, we were talking about scouting again with Division I and with the NCAA. Also, what should we as fans look for to see a difference between, okay, this guy's the MVP over there, but probably a rotational player here, versus a unicorn like Luka that comes in and just completely takes over the league?
It's incredibly hard to answer that broadly. It comes down to specifics. So I'll use the example of Luka. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, who I very much respect, was completely not seeing it with Luka. And the reason he didn't see it with Luka was because he scrutinized the clips that were available. At this point, this is the information age. You can get access to everything, so you have to choose wisely. My friend, who will remain nameless, heavily scrutinized clips of what he could see of Luka, and he thought he's never going to make it in the NBA because he doesn't have the foot speed. He will not get separation. However, because there's an absolute ton of footage of Luka at the highest levels outside of the NBA, with Slovenia, with Real Madrid, against premium NBA caliber defenders. Remember, half of the EuroLeague is played in the NBA. I can't prove that, but it sounds right. then you know that he can get separation against these players, not on raw foot speed, but on the nous, the step back, the intricacy, the hesitations, the eye fakes. It's not a hypothetical as to whether he could get separation on these players. He already did. Defensively, yeah, okay, he never had the foot speed to be great. You don't want him to be great defensively because that's a waste of his energy that you want him going forwards where he can dissect defenses in a way that he already had. Broadly, I think the answer comes back to what I said before about you measuring someone's athletic prowess, because the NBA, I will defend the EuroLeague and all European leagues, of course I will, but there is no dispute that the best athletes play in the NBA, because if there are good athletes in the European game, the NBA gobbles them up. No dispute. But if you can tell whether someone will be an NBA caliber athlete, fine. You can tell whether they'll be an NBA caliber person, that's also fine. But if you take things out of context, as my very close personal friend that I feel bad for naming and shaming here did with Luka, then you'll miss the context that will show you or convince you how they will translate to the NBA game.
Is there anyone on the horizon like a Luka that we should be keeping our eyes on?
I would love to say yes. You've had the greatest prospects in a generation, and I'm including Luka, come over in Victor. There's no one quite that earth-changing on the horizon in the next 2 to 3 years, but there will be. This is the international game now. Look at the very top. We're talking Luka, Giannis, Victor, Jokic, of course, who somehow I managed to not mention. The game's very best are coming from all around the globe, and particularly from Europe. That's not going away. That's how it is now. The USA has the majority of the world's top 1,000 players, but it no longer has a monopoly over that.
You didn't name, you just shamed, and I respect that, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but did your friend's name rhyme with Schlade Vivats? I'm just curious.
I have never spoken to anyone with a name that rhymes with Schlade Bivac. I wish not to shame. It obviously, let's say, didn't work out with Marvin Bagley, but that's not who I was referring to. No. Yeah, I feel bad bringing the Luka thing up now to a Sacramento audience. Sorry about that.
Oh, we're over it.
You know what?
No, we're not.
We're over it. Yeah, exactly. We're over it, except it's an open, gaping wound that will last forever. But other than that, Mark, we're fine.
It's a bit like the fall of the empire over here. I know what you mean.
Hey, look, I hope this isn't the last time we talk. As I always say, when you have a British accent, the IQ points go up about 50. Everything you say, it just sounds right. It just sounds right, whether it's in sports analysis or fantasy movies where someone's playing a wizard. It always helps. I guess my last question would be for you. Blood sausage, really? Like, is why? I don't get it.
Don't scrutinize what it sounds like. I'll give you another one, haggis. It sounds horrific. If you read the ingredients on that thing, oh boy, it's not good. So blank it out. Willful ignorance is the way forward, and try it. It's all right. It sounds like it shouldn't be, but it is. We don't have what you would call a refined palate over here. It's another stereotype that is based in fact. I'm obviously biased towards it, largely through nostalgia, but do try the blood sausage, do try the haggis, and you might be surprised or you might be horrified. Risk it.
Somebody told me once, they said that blood sausage haggis, that's the European version of hot dogs over here. Like, you don't want to know what's in a hot dog, but it just tastes good.
Yep, absolutely. Hot dogs, it's worth paying a bit extra. We might get some actual meat in there, but just go in blinds and cover your eyes and deny everything. That's my advice.
Mark Deeks,
good advice.
Is a scout, a writer, and a phenomenal interview. Follow him at Mark Deeks. That's DEEKS NBA. Mark, appreciate your time. Have a safe time over there. Have a fun time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, take care. That's Mark Deeks.